So we're having some fun here, planning our dinner at the Chart House.
Yeah, it's really fun to be in Sylvia's presence, a beautiful feminine energy, and she's very intelligent, and it's an honor to spend time and know you. And I hope you're coming to Shasta. You know, we need you up there this summer.
I've been to Shasta many times. I've studied at mystery school there.
I know. I want you to come to the conference, though. I want you to meet Omnek Omnek.
Omnek Omnek?
Mm-hmm.
Who's that?
The woman from Venus.
Oh, her name is Omnek Omnek.
Yeah, you better check out my website like everyone else out there and check the band.
And on that note, let's talk a little bit more about extraterrestrials.
Okay.
I had my own experience with them on my 33rd birthday, on April 4th, 33, right? The magic number.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found myself to be in an altered state of consciousness, and all of my five senses were extremely heightened. People actually thought I was, high.
You thought you were on drugs and stuff because you had a spiritual connection to yourself.
But I wasn't, and I don't do those things, and never done it. And that evening, after I loved everyone, after everything tasted so beautifully, smelled so wonderful, like I've tasted, smelled, seen, heard everyone for the first time ever, on that day, on April 4th, on my 33rd birthday. In that evening, I actually saw in my bedroom a very tall being, and he was in my presence for about 20 minutes, and he was emanating such a high frequency of love that I've never found myself since then in a higher state of love, basically. And then later on, I found out through a channeler that his name was Zork, and he was Pleiadian, and that's how I started my Pleiadian connection. And then I started in Mount Shasta with Amarakwani. So I personally had a personal experience with an ET, but I know so many people, especially those who I try to talk in Slovakia through my spiritual videos, they still resist extraterrestrials. Why do you think it is? It's some kind of fear that we have on the...
I think there's some programming, and the fact is it's a very simple thing for the average person. If they're real, why don't they land? Why aren't they here? And this is where, if you go into my information and Cobra's information and prepare for change, and you understand we're in a quarantine situation that has been agreed to by different extraterrestrial groups, basically because the Earth is being held hostage from complete and total destruction. The asteroid belt is a similar planet under a similar situation, and when they're kicked off the planet, they like to blow it up. They don't like to be taken away from their power base and control. It's a very sad situation.
They could, but it won't happen, right?
There's plans always for forgiveness and for healing for all beings, but that's an obvious reason, is people don't have their own experience, and that's understandable. People will have their own experience if they approach this subject with an open mind, and you knock on the door and ask for the truth. It'll be showed to you. Now, there are many stories of angels and non-material beings interacting with humanity. It's part of who we are, and it's part of the multidimensional ecology of life. And we've been focused, and our frequency band of perception narrowed down to the only thing that we accept and understand is on the physical plane. And we're given false physics, we're given lies about what exists in outer space, and our understanding is limited, understandably so, because we've been censored. But there are those people who are sensitive who are able to detect the angelic and non-material realms. Many people have reported angels. There's many miracles that have occurred. It goes on and on and on. And to deny this and to want to stick to your guns is okay. We can't force any information on anyone. People will come to you, and you had talked to me about the situation, and you were kind of disheartened by the fact, the way that you had been treated in your home country for your spiritual things. And I said, look, that's actually a badge of courage, and you're going to fly farther and stronger on scarred wings, because that's an ephemeral, that's like a surface view of the Hollywood thing, and they're just using you to sell magazines to make a controversy, and at the same time it's a hit on the truth of what you've experienced and what's going on the planet. So we have to recognize this is a standard modus of operandi for the forces that be to keep this type of information from the public on the mainstream media, and if anyone has real evidence, they're killed. Let's talk about 4 deaths of journalists within 24 hours after Edward Snowden did an interview. One of the interviewers died of a heart attack within 4 hours, and 3 of them had died within 72 hours of that interview. They were given direct evidence from Putin proving that the 9/11 was a false flag terrorist attack, because you could watch the planes. They were actually flown from one of the Israeli Mossad agents had a airport base where these planes crashed in the towers. This is actually a murder, a planned operation, and there were no terrorists involved in this other than the controlled terrorist within the United States government and the Israeli Secret Service Intelligence Agency, furthering a world takeover situation they've been planning for a long time.
When did this happen, though?
9/11.
Yeah, I know, but when was this information?
This was recently, that these when Edward Snowden was interviewed. I was in Maui, but 4 journalists died, and they neutered a very famous news reporter named Brian Williams. They had all decided to join forces and start their own news broadcast station on their own, and he was neutered, and misinformation put out there, and 4 people were murdered. He's lucky he wasn't killed in the bag. So they take the truth very seriously, and I'm not on any big mainstream thing, and I'm just a voice in the wilderness, but people have to choose and discern for themselves what resonates to them and do their own research. So this information is out there in fringe, but it's actually very real. As far as the extraterrestrials, your experience that you had there, the enhanced sensory activity, indicates a very positive and a spiritual communication that took place for you. No one could agree with you because this experience was yours alone. So for you to try and share it, and I had this experience when I was very young, people don't listen and don't understand because they haven't had that experience. So we have to, until the climate, and the climate's getting better, believe me, but until the climate gets to the level where people can understand that we are not alone, and that we don't need to channel other beings, we don't need them to do anything. We need to connect to our own spiritual natures, our own God self, and generate these experiences from within. We certainly can ask for benevolent guidance from spiritual forces, from the masters of wisdom, and understanding the true history of our planet, and those beings that you resonate with. And some of them are myths, and some of them are actually real beings, but the extraterrestrial situation is difficult, it's complex, and there's misinformation out there. So people just keep an open mind and tune into your heart.
Exactly.
And enter into the silence regularly. I'll say one other thing here that I think is very important for people to connect is nature. On other worlds, the extraterrestrials have absolute love and respect for their nature. They do not pollute their planet. They do not use radiation. They would never think of bulldozing groves of trees for shopping centers. There is another way that we can go if we were to work together and to have that respect. We would find the way. If we held life sacred, if we understood the nature elements, the angelic devic realm, and the sacredness of our earth and our oceans and our air. Look at the pollution. Look at how many hours you people, especially in America, are sitting in traffic in Los Angeles, spewing smog, and there is an alternative free energy. There is a liberation coming for the planet, and it's coming from within us, and it's coming from truth. So the extraterrestrials are going to play a part, but we don't rely on them. We don't ask them to do everything, and we need to take responsibility. I want to make that really clear, that Prepare for Change isn't about letting other people do the change. It's about us taking responsibility and stepping up to the plate.
Prepare for Change website, that we will attach the link to the website under this video.
.net, prepareforchange.net.
.net. It was interesting what you said, that at your retreat in Manchester, you're going to be screening this film that I actually saw at Burbank Film Festival, and it was about this being from Venus. I think he had 6 fingers that actually lived in Pentagon, and then someone really met him and wrote a book about him, right? My
friend Dr. Frank Stranges, his name is Commander Val Thor, and he's actually what we would call an Elohim, and he materialized on the planet Venus and was adopted by the Thor family, Don Thor, and that's his vice commander. The famous picture of him and a friend of mine who's now passed, Howard Menger, is taken in 1957. I believe it's in March of 1957, right before I was born. Valiant Thor appeared at Howard Menger's place, and he spoke multiple languages with different people from around the world, including a Xhosa dialect with clucking sounds from Africa. He was one of the first contacts of the government, a formal contact. He landed in Alexandria, Virginia in March of 1957, and he presented a book to Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was shuttled from the Pentagon to the White House in an underground train, and he made a formal contact with the U.S. government to help us with transportation, communications, food, education, energy, health. Everything was offered to break the quarantine and to bring us into galactic human status and for us to wake up from this quarantine. However, the government advisors were already in contact with another group of extraterrestrials who are hostile, and they're known as the Greys. And the way it went down is on the same day they went to the Eisenhower, and they went to whoever it was, Khrushchev, I think, and they said, look, we would like to have bases with you. We'll give you some technology, and we'd like to take your people up. They won't know, and we're going to do some testing on them. That's all they said. We want to look at the genetics. And they both said, no, we're not going to do that. Who are you? What are you doing? And they looked really weird anyway. And so they said no. And then they said, well, if you don't do it, we're going to make the Russians the superpower. And then they told the Russians, if you don't sign this contract, we're going to make the Americans the superpower. So they did that at the same time, and they got themselves entrenched. And through a period of time, through what's called implantation, which is some people call it a transhumanist agenda of advanced technology, they started to take over elements within the government. It's kind of an exotic, like a movie story, but this needs to be healed. We have forces now who are going to support us in the revelation of this and for us to move forward. And the real way for us to move forward, again, is for us to individually, spiritually take responsibility and to raise our vibration through various techniques, toning, sounding, and raising our frequency through the advanced technologies that I share on my site. And many others around the world are moving into more of a vibrational technology. Sound, light, and color is where it's at, folks, and get ready for the new stuff. It's going to be very transformative. It's going to be, you won't understand it, you're healed. It's like, a withered arm becomes whole, kind of a miracle type healing, because it's based on universal laws of truth and love.
Beautiful.
So, thank you.
And we'll talk a little more in the next part.
Oh, one more, okay. Very good. We'll be back.
We will be back. I will be back.
I'll be back. Or in Filipino, babalaka ko.
See ya, guys.